Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our online learning. I hope you've all had a reasonably good Easter break. I know it was probably not what you were planning to do for 2 weeks. Was sort of sit inside and go outside for an hour of exercise every day. But hopefully you've had a bit of downtime and yeah. I what did I do in Easter? I had my birthday, which was different. And me and my husband played The Last of Us, which was quite fun. So yeah, we're not really doing very much either, apart from going out for walks every now and then, or taking my son for a run around the field or whatever. It is what it is. We're all in it together. So unfortunately, I don't have very much news for you in regards to your qualification. Um, Ofqual have approved the UAL's decision to not count the major project towards your final grades, and have said that they want to go ahead and have your final grades assessed on how you've worked for the year. We still haven't been given any guidance on how we're supposed to do that, whether we're going off predicted grades or whether we're going off students, the understanding of students and what we know of our students, and kind of using that teacher judgment. We don't know. So yeah, there's no answers there really. But we are carrying on as we have been instructed to do with your major projects, because I think it's really good for you to have something to be working for. It won't all be for nothing. It will count towards your progression, and it will go on to something for next year. But it also gives you an outlet to be creative and kind of have something to do, have something to structure your days around, which I think is really valuable right now. Otherwise, you can just lose track of time and days and everything. So I hope that you are finding working from home okay. I know some people who've reached out have said that they are finding it quite hard. And all I can say to you is really just do the absolute best you can. I'm not expecting you to be producing the most amazing pieces of work, to be working 10 hours a day. I'm not expecting that at all. I'm just expecting you to do the best that you can, and to do the work that's been set really. And it's only being set because I want you to stay on top of stuff, and giving you these deadlines is allowing you to stay on lost the power of speech, to stay on top of your workload, so that when you come to hand in this project, everything's pretty much done. You're not rushing to get it all done for the deadline. It also allows me to keep on top of you and being able to see your work as you're doing it, because obviously I can't speak to you as we normally would do in a class. So yeah, so I really appreciate those of you that are being super communicative with me, and giving me regular updates on what you're up to and how you're finding things. Those of you that are handing work in on time, it's brilliant. You are all doing brilliantly. That said, proposal deadline is today, so I need to have your proposal for your idea in today. All of the information for that is on Google Classroom. I have also asked for a pitch and a recording of your pitch. Now, some people have reached out and said that they are finding that quite difficult because they don't know how to do that. They don't have the software or the ability to kind of record themselves from home. That's absolutely fine. If you can't do a recording, doesn't matter. If you can just do a script of what you would have said had you done a recording. So you'll still have your PowerPoint slides, but then a script of what you would say alongside those slides. That's fine. That's an easy win. But those of you that can record, then please feel free and go ahead and record yourselves doing it. And I've also asked for you all to have another reflection in today. I appreciate that maybe you didn't do very much over the Easter holidays. So if you literally have nothing to say about what you've done over Easter, if you've done nothing towards your project whatsoever, then don't do a reflection. If you have done some bits towards your project, then just do the reflection as for the 2 weeks rather than one per week. Just do a reflection for over the Easter break. This is what I have done towards my project, if that makes sense. Okay, so quite a few of you have already commented on the ethical dilemma I put onto Google Classroom, which is really cool. I am sorry about the morbid nature of its sort of subject, but I think it's a really interesting experiment. It's a social experiment. It's been around for years and years and years to kind of get people to think about ethics and how they would behave in a scenario like that. I honestly don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would just let the train go and kill the 5 people, or if I would step in and actually pull the lever to kill one person. There's been lots of variations of the trolley problem, so if you found that kind of interesting, then have a look at it online. Yeah, it's just called the trolley problem. There's another one where you are standing on a bridge next to a really overweight person over the train track, and the train comes, and you can either push the person over the bridge to stop the train and kill that one person and save the 5, or let the person just stand there and the train just kills the 5 people. It's all about like stepping in and taking an action to make that change. I just think it's quite interesting, and there's some of the responses have been quite good so far, so that's good. So today what we're going to be talking about is analysis and how to analyse, because I will be setting your next piece of work today, which is an analysis task. I know that analysis is quite difficult for some people, so I just thought I would put this PowerPoint together for you to hopefully kind of help you with analysing and how to analyse. So let's get started on this. Right, so how to analyse. What we will be covering today. So I'm going to just explain what analysis is and why we do it. We're going to have a look at different ways that you can analyse something. I've got an example of an analysis that I have done. So I've chosen something to analyse and done a full analysis of it for you. And then I will just explain what your analysis task is that I've asked you to do. So why do we analyse? Why would we bother doing something like that? There's lots of reasons, really. In terms of media, it's really about kind of exploring a greater meaning behind something, to consider those different ways that the meaning is being communicated to us. If you were to be analysing data, you would be analysing for a result. So it's similar in that way. So you're kind of analysing to find a meaning out of something, to have a greater understanding of the ideas that are being presented to you. It's the process of breaking something down into smaller chunks to discover its meaning. So with film, especially, directors, not all directors, most directors will have meaning behind their work because they're artists, and at the end of the day, film is a piece of art that someone has made for you. And rather than just kind of telling you meaning all the time, meaning is being implied through images, through framing, through character, through conversation, through symbolism. So through narrative, we're just gonna have a look at some of those different aspects and analyze a film together. So there's different ways that you can analyse. So there's sort of different elements that you can look at when you come to do your analysis. So you could analyse a narrative. You could look at Todorov or Joseph Campbell, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail in a minute. You could analyse characters. So according to Propp's character types, again, I will go over that in a second. You could analyse the mise-en-scène of a scene. You could analyse symbolism, and you can use all those things to kind of analyse to consider some meaning. So I'll go through these in a little bit more detail whilst analysing a film. So American Beauty is the film that I've chosen. I don't know how many of you have seen this film. It came out quite a long time ago, so I'm not guessing many of you have seen it. But it's a film with a lot of kind of deeper meaning to it. So it's a really good one to analyse. So if you're struggling for something to analyse, then watch American Beauty. I don't know if it's definitely not on Netflix. I don't know if it's on Prime, but it's a really interesting film with some really interesting subjects and kind of, there's lots of depth to it. So that's why I've kind of chosen it for this. So just to give you a little bit of context about this film, it was released in 1999. It's got Kevin Spacey, Annette Bening, Thora Birch and Mina Savari in it. Some of those names might be familiar to you. It's all about a very well-off family who live in your classic American suburbs, supposedly living the American dream. So, a lovely family of three. They've got lots of money, nice big house, really good jobs, nice car. They have a nice meal round the table every night. You know, it's that real, like, picture perfect family. However, under the surface, there are a lot of problems going on within this family. The father is called Lester, played by Kevin Spacey. He falls in love with his daughter's best friend. His daughter is a teenager. Um, I think they're supposed to be about 17 or 18. So he falls in love with his daughter's best friend, and he fantasizes about being with her. And while he's doing this, his own marriage breaks down. His daughter grows to hate him because of the way that he feels towards her friend. And we actually find out in the very first scene of the film that he has died. The father is dead. So the film kind of tells us the story of how that came to happen, the events that happened that led to his death by the end of the film. If we were to analyse the narrative, you can choose a structure to analyse the narrative on. So you could choose Todorov, who we all know very well, our equilibrium theory, but there are others. For example, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, if you really want to challenge yourself. The hero's journey is a massive theory. I think it's about 25 steps to the theory, but it applies perfectly to films like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or The Matrix, films that have that very clear hero character. Marvel movies, superhero movies would be good to apply the hero's journey to. It doesn't really apply to this film, so I'm going to use Todorov for my analysis. Okay, so Todorov and American Beauty. So the equilibrium is that the Burnham family are living their normal everyday life. They wake up, they go to work, they kind of fight over petty domestic issues, they have dinner, they have breakfast. You know, it's a very kind of straightforward scene of this family, and that is the normal for them. The disruption happens when the parents go to visit their daughter's cheerleading show, and the father, Lester, becomes infatuated with his daughter's best friend, Angela. As he continues to fantasize about Angela, his own marriage begins to break down. As his wife, Carolyn, she starts to have a mental breakdown and starts having an affair with a co-worker. The recognition, so that's the kind of disruption of the normal. They're the things that happen to disrupt that normal family life. The recognition is where you kind of recognize, the characters kind of recognize that something is happening and they make a change. So Lester is listening to his daughter and Angela having a conversation, and he overhears her saying that if he was to work out and get a bit fitter, then she would find him really attractive. So he decides to do that and take control of his life. So he gets into shape, he quits his job, he starts smoking loads of weed, he buys a sports car, he allows his wife to continue her affair. He doesn't really care about that. He's very, very focused on getting Angela to fall in love with him. It's that very typical midlife crisis kind of situation for a middle-aged man to be going through. The restoration comes as Lester attempts to rekindle his relationship with his daughter and his wife after choosing to neglect them in pursuit of his own happiness. So whilst he is trying to woo Angela and get Angela to fall in love with him, all the other relationships in his life are breaking down. So he tries to kind of rekindle that, but it backfires. He then finds Angela in his living room. She's very vulnerable and very sad after falling out with his daughter. And he learns that despite all of her posturing, she's often talking about how many men she slept with and talking about her kind of sexual history, that all of that has been made up and that she is in fact actually a virgin. And he sees her for what she is, which is a very confused teenager, a very vulnerable young person who just needs guidance and support. She kind of needs a father figure. She's someone that has perhaps been neglected by her own family, who have put her into a position where she feels like she needs to make stuff up about herself to make herself seem interesting. So that's the kind of restoration. So things are starting to be fixed. In terms of Lester, things are starting to be fixed, where he's sort of his journey is kind of coming around. After this encounter with Angela, Lester is murdered. He's looking at a photograph of his family when they were younger, and he's shot. As his life flashes before his eyes, he learns what he truly held dear to him, which was his wife and child. Life for his wife and daughter go on, but they have also been given the same realization to focus on what matters and not on the superficial sides of life. So they kind of all come to a realization that they need to better themselves. They need to move on. They need to move away from the kind of normal that they had in the beginning. So that's your kind of new equilibrium. So that's just a very sort of basic breakdown of the narrative, which you can do to any film. We've practiced doing this to Todorov on multiple occasions, so it's really quite a good way of breaking that, starting that first stage of analysis of breaking something down into smaller chunks. You can also do that by analysing the characters. So Vladimir Prop came up with these typical characters that you'd find in almost every single story. You can kind of join this into your narrative analysis, if you like, and then come to an overall conclusion based upon your analysis of narrative and character. It all depends on what you choose to analyse. So this is Prop's character theory. So all these different characters here, the hero, the villain, the princess, the dispatcher, the donor, the helper, the father, and the false hero, they all lend themselves to a character in a film or a story. And they have a specific function. So the hero's on a quest, the villain works in opposition to the hero, the princess is what or who the quest is for. That may not always be a person. The dispatcher sends the hero on the quest. The donor gives the hero something to help them on the quest. The helper assists the hero on his quest. The father rewards the hero. And the false hero is someone who appears to be helping but is unmasked as a fraud. So Vladimir Prop theorised that this could be applied to almost every single story that's ever been told, which is fairly true in a way. So we can apply that to American Beauty. So the hero, it could be multiple people, but let's just say that our hero is Lester Burnham, the father. He's on the quest to better himself to impress a younger woman. The villain, this could also be multiple people. It could be his wife or daughter who treat him badly and make him feel worthless, or it could be the person who shoots him at the end of the film. The princess, Angela, is what his quest is for. That is his goal. Is his what he wants her to fall in love with him. But based on how the actual story goes, you could say that the true princess is his wife and daughter, as that is who he realises he truly loves at the end of the film. The dispatcher, again, it could be a couple of people. It could be Angela again, as seeing her is the reason he chose to improve himself, or it could be his boss for firing him, or his wife and daughter for making him feel so worthless he needed to improve. So remember, the dispatcher is the person that sends the hero on the journey. So they are the person that kickstarts the hero's story. The donor, so the donor is, they give the hero something to help them on their quest. So for Lester, that is Angela, as she gives him the drive to improve himself. The helper, so the next door neighbour's son, Ricky, he's the one that sells Lester weed, and he reminds him of his younger self. So Ricky's outlook on life, the way that he is and the way that he acts, inspires Lester to change his ways. So he really helps Lester. He's kind of Lester's only friend. The father rewards the hero. So Lester's only reward really is the realisation of the love he has for his family. So in a way, he is his own father in that respect. And the false hero, this is his wife, the person that kind of seems like they're doing good all the time but actually are not, and that is her through and through. She always thinks that her actions are for the best of her family, but they are just driven by her own selfish desires. But there are lots of characters in this film that don't fit into this theory, so you could consider those characters and their purpose within the story, whether the story would have made sense without them, or whether they really are integral to the plot and what their kind of role is. So, for example, in this we've got the neighbour's father, who has a huge part to play in this story, but he doesn't really fit into any of these categories. So, yeah, that's something that is quite interesting. So you can then kind of create a meaning. So I've just sort of written this out. I've just sort of written this out fairly vaguely. So Todorov and Prop and the meaning of in American Beauty, that could be your sort of title if you're choosing narrative and character analysis. So the fact that on the surface the narrative of American Beauty is very straightforward, there are complicated elements working underneath where different stories and characters can play different parts. The disequilibrium of Todorov's theory doesn't apply as well to American Beauty as we don't get to see much of life after Leicester. The future is simply implied. Prop's character theory applies to American Beauty in a fairly complicated way, as different characters have multiple purposes, and some characters do not fit into his theory, but do play an important part, for example, the father of the neighbour. These complications mirror the complications of family life, that while everything may seem perfect on the surface, there is much more going on underneath that is far from perfect and quite disruptive to the normal. So that's how you would kind of structure your narrative. You would break it down, structure your essay, sorry. You would break it down, you'd break down the narrative, break down the characters, and then bring it all together in a concluding paragraph about how you can kind of deduce meaning from those things. Okay, another thing you can do is mise en scène. So mise en scène is a French term which basically refers to everything within a scene. So when you analyse mise en scène of a scene, you'll be looking at the following things: framing, lighting, props, costume and makeup, positioning in the frame, and depth of the frame. So what's kind of happening in the background and what's happening in the foreground. So you can choose to write your essay, your analysis on just a scene within a film, if you like. So I've got an example from American Beauty here. So this is a very key scene in this film, and a lot about what is happening in this frame tells you a lot about this family. So I just want you to focus on the characters, the framing, and especially the jar of roses, the vase of roses in the middle of the table. Okay, so if we think about symbolism with this scene, it refers to how an object can be given meaning based on its purpose and placement within the scene. For example, the roses in the picture symbolise beauty and love, but roses have thorns which can hurt you. The roses being placed in the centre of the table shows that the one unifying thing between the family is love, but that love is painful. The thing that joins Leicester and his wife together is their daughter, which is why the roses are placed over her, and they're over her chest, over her heart. Something you would learn about their daughter from watching the film is that she wants to have breast augmentation. She wants to have plastic surgery to correct herself. But the roses there are kind of symbolising the perfection that her parents see in her and the imperfection that she sees in herself. And the need to kind of to change herself, and the positioning of the roses is really important in that scene. And the symmetry of the scene symbolises perfection and balance, but the elements that are not symmetrical symbolise the disruption and distortion of that balance. So it's almost a perfectly symmetrical scene. You could draw a line down the middle and it would be the same on both sides, but the stuff that's kind of happening in the background means that it's not totally symmetrical. So you've got the foreground, the surface level of symmetry, but the background not so much. Again, building on that idea of perfection being kind of what they strive for and what they want to be seen as is this perfect family, but underneath it in the background there's so much more going on to dispute that. So the meaning of the symbolism here, the motive, so that again this is kind of how you can pull it together. You can choose a picture, you can analyse a symbolism by looking at the mise en scène. So all these different things, you can kind of find symbolism within it. And then you kind of have the meaning, which is your concluding paragraph. So the motif of the rose in this scene symbolises the flaws in their apparent perfect life. The rose, while beautiful and often associated with love and romance, can also be a symbol of pain and sorrow and hold much more morbid connotations. This reflects the family themselves. They are perfect on the surface, but not underneath. They are all battling their own demons. Another thing I want to talk about is facial, the facial features, the facial expressions the of the family members and their positioning. So here we have the wife on the left. She is straight backed. She's sitting upright. She looks quite stern. She's not very relaxed, and her eye line is very much looking down on her husband. The daughter as well, the way that she's sitting, she's almost looking sympathetically towards her dad, who is lower down. He's hunched over and he's smiling. He's the only person in this scene that is smiling. She kind of has this look of pity on her face, and she just has this look that he has thoroughly annoyed her. So that's a really important thing to consider when you're kind of thinking about meaning, is characters' positions, their facial expressions, the way that they have been placed within a frame. So the mise-en-scène in this scene also helps to produce the same meaning, that they are perfect on the surface but not underneath. The way in which the wife is sitting, she isn't relaxed, she's stern-faced, she looks like she is mad at her husband, who is slightly cowering and hunched over. This shows how much power she has over him and how much she belittles him. The daughter position in the middle, looking down at her father, makes it seem like she pities him. She isn't angry at him, she just feels a bit sorry for him. Okay, so you can, you could choose a scene and analyze it in these ways. So you could choose to do mise-en-scène, where you pick a scene and pick frames from that scene to really kind of analyze and pull apart, considering all those different elements and the symbolism of those elements. What do those things mean? Why have they been put there? And conclude that into sort of a paragraph or two where you kind of deduce the meaning of that. What do you think it all means? Do a bit of research as well. Researching into American Beauty, you'll find out an awful lot of stuff about the actual type of rose that they use in this film, and what that means, and how it's all about looking closer at something, looking deeper, looking within something. So you could do it either way. You could do narrative and character, you could do mise-en-scène, or if you don't want to do either of these things, you can do it your own way. This is just kind of to help you out a little bit. So with your analysis task, I'll put up a proper assignment on Google Classroom for you, but you need to write a 500 word at least, if you go over that's fine, analysis on either a short film or a scene from a film of your choice. So if you search on YouTube short films, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands probably, of short films that are on YouTube that you could choose to analyse. So if you want to spend some time going through those and find one that you like that you can analyse, then by all means do that. Or you can choose a scene from a film of your choice. So kind of like how I've done with American Beauty. I chose this dinner scene for my mise-en-scène. You could choose a similar thing if you wanted to. You can choose to analyse your film or scene in any of the ways I have demonstrated, or you can use all of these methods, or you can use none of them. It's completely up to you, but this is quite a nice way to approach analysis if it's something that you're not that sure about. Something really important to consider is that not all films will lend themselves well to being analysed. So not all films will be analysable, if that's a word. Some films just are what they are. They're just face value. There's not much meaning in there. So avoid films like that. If you really can't think of anything to say and you can't really think of anything to analyse, then the chances are that film is not a good choice and you need to think about something else instead. So choose your film wisely. If you're struggling to find a film, just let me know and I can point you in the right direction. Or do American Beauty, because I've done quite a lot of it here, and it's a really great film for you to watch. It's a couple of hours long. It's a really great movie. I recommend it. Your analysis will need to have pictures, so please put pictures in to help illustrate your point, especially if you're doing mise-en-scène of a scene. Put that picture in, annotate that picture, make it look, use the picture to kind of help you with your writing, rather than just doing long descriptions of something, put a picture in, because then you don't need to use up loads of words describing something. I can just look at the picture. Okay, so just really, really quickly, I just want to go over a couple of structuring points. Just again to kind of help you, those of you that struggle with essay writing, which I know a few of you do. These are just some things to help you. So first thing to think of when you're structuring your whole essay is to think of a burger. Think of the different things that make up a burger. You've got your introduction, which is your top bun. Then you've got your paragraphs, which is all your filling, and then you've got your conclusion, which is the bottom bun. It's a complete, full, delicious package. Your paragraphs should have one point of discussion per paragraph. Don't try and cram loads of different things into one paragraph. Think, right, paragraph 1, I'm going to talk about narrative. Paragraph 2, I'm going to talk about characters. Paragraph 3, I'm going to talk about symbolism. And then you bring it all together in your conclusion at the end. Okay? Speaking of paragraphs, some of you may have come across this in English. Your perfect peel paragraph, which is point, evidence, explain, and link. So make your point at the beginning of your paragraph. What is it that you are trying to say? Then you use some evidence to back this up. So this might be either a quote from something that you found on the internet, so something that kind of backs up what you want to say, or it might be a shot from the film, or a line from the film, or a bit of dialogue or something like that that kind of backs that up. Explain how your evidence backs up your point, and then link it to your next point. So you then want to just link it all together. Okay, so they're just really good, really quick, easy ways to think about structuring something. Okay, so I really hope that has that's been helpful for you for your film analysis task. That will be going on to Google Classroom at the end of the day today. So please do take some time to read over that, and if you have any questions about it, just send me an email. If you want to get started on it and just send me what you've got so far, then that's fine as well, and I can just let you know if you're on the right track. That's absolutely a-okay for you to do that. And yeah, just keep going. Quite a few of you are working really, really well. Most of you actually in your groups are working well. Some of you are not working as well at all, and you're not really even talking to each other. So if that is you, and you're not working well with your partner, then just send me an email, and you can work on your own for this project, but it will just be a little bit more challenging for you. But yeah, just ping me an email and we can talk about it. Okay? All right, I hope you are all well. Any questions, any problems, as always, just shoot me an email and I'll be right there. Okay? All right, take care. Bye.